give some questions to practice for the students of West Bengal State University second semester. And today I am going to give some questions to practice for the students of fourth semester West Bengal State University. There are too many questions to take care of, and without further delay, let's start. First, we shall begin with the neoclassical paper. Samuel Johnson's London. First question. Analyze and appreciate Johnson's London as a satiric work. Second question. What is an imitation and how does Johnson imitate Juvenal's third satire in his poem London? Third question. Evaluate London as a specimen of neoclassical poem. Fourth question. How does Johnson compare contemporary London with its glorious history? Similar kind of question is that Johnson's London is highly political as a poem. Elucidate. Same kind of question. Okay. And the last question, Johnson's language and style. Moving on to Thomas Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard. First, the most important question is that what is an elegy, and appreciate Gray's poem as an unprecedented specimen of the elegiac form. Simply put, appreciate Gray's poem as an elegy. Okay. Second question. Life versus death is a central idea in Gray's elegy. Elaborate. Third question. The rustic life is compared to the lives of great men by Thomas Gray. How does Gray do that? Elaborate. Fourth, significance of the epitaph. And the last one, imagery. Moving on to William Blake. This central idea, now you have to remember that you have three poems. Number one is Introduction to Songs of Innocence. Number two, Lamb from Songs of Innocence. And number three, The Tiger from Songs of Experience. So three poems you have to remember. William Blake, question number one, the central idea of Blake's introduction to the Songs of Innocence. Second question, Blake's language and style. I think this time the introduction, the poem introduction is a bit more important than Lamb, at least. And tiger is always important. So the third question is imagery in tiger. Fourth question, explain Blake's concept of innocence, experience, and higher innocence with reference to the poems Lamb and Tiger. Next question, the fifth one, is symbolism in Blake's poetry. And the last one, Blake as a visionary poet or spiritualism in Blake's poetry. I think that these questions won't come, these last two, but still these are some questions to think about. William Congreve, moving on to The Way of the World. Now, if you have to prepare 100% about this particular play, The Way of the World, this is a very complicated play in terms of plot construction. There are too many things to take care of. There are too many questions. Actually, I have a list of like 17 questions here, which I have sorted out. But I am not going to give you all the 17 questions here because you will be burdened with so many questions. So I am going to, these 17 questions cover everything up. But I am going to give you some special questions, some very specific ones which you should do so that you can have a less of a burden about this play with greater chance of answering the questions that may come. First and foremost, know about the term restoration comedy very clearly, and then study the play as a specimen of restoration comedy in detail, because there are too many questions that may seem to be otherwise, but you will need the concept of restoration comedy to answer those questions. Not always the questions will come like write about restoration comedy or Way of the World as a restoration comedy. Sometimes there will be other questions, other kind of questions, but to answer them you will have to explain what is restoration comedy. You will have to explain how this thing works as a restoration comedy. Like, for example, Congreve's play is a show of wits as well as fools. Elaborate. Now, wits are common in restoration comedy, and fools are also, foppish dandies, fools, so country bumpkins. Those are the terminologies that are the basic characteristics in a restoration comedy. So it is pretty common thing to have in a restoration comedy. And here we see that if we have to explain about the presence of wits and fools in the play, we are actually explaining a particular aspect of restoration comedy that is here present in this play. So this is, if you do the concept of, if you have the concept very clear about restoration comedy and how The Way of the World is a specimen of restoration comedy, then you can answer all these questions. Something different here from this idea is the gender roles and female independence. How it is shown in this play, gender roles and female independence. And related to this is another very important question, that is the significance of the proviso scene. In case of proviso scene, you have to focus on that particular scene and you have to talk about gender roles, about the theme of love in practical terms, and the theme of love, the theme of money, and the theme of female independence or gender roles. That is, all these things are linked to the proviso scene, but you have to focus on that scene only. But if the question comes like write about the theme of gender roles and female independence, you have to point out the theme throughout the play, how it works. I mean, how this theme is present throughout the play, and you have to explain about foible, you have to explain about Mrs. Marwood, you have to explain about Lady Wishfort. So there are too many female characters to take care of in this answer. But if you are asked about the proviso scene, the theme is same, but you are focusing on one particular scene. You are focusing on Millamant and Mirabell only. So moving on to the next question, I think this year these characters are very, very important for you. These are the foremost important questions from this play, because this is the first time West Bengal State University is going to have this text in the end semester. The text was there, but it was in internal examinations. Now they are, for the first time, including this text in the actual examination. So I think the questions, the characters of Mirabell, Millamant, Fainall, these are very, very important. Also, focus on the female characters separately. In one question, one answer, focus on all the female characters. And in another question, another answer, focus on the wits and the fools. Okay. So it can be a question like role of the servants, but I don't think it has a chance this year very much, but this may come. This is a smaller chance, but yet role of the fools, that is pretty much an important question. And then Congreve's use of language, this is a hard one. And another common question, that is significance of the title of The Way of the World. I think these questions will suffice. Okay. Moving on to Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels. Focus on Swift's satire. I mean, how does Swift satirize human society from various aspects? Focus on that. In book 3, there is some kind of satire. In book 4, a different kind of satire. From different aspect, Book 3 focuses on knowledge. Book 4 focuses on civilization as a concept, being civil or civilized as a concept. So different things are satirized throughout the whole novel. Satire is the main style that is taken by Swift, and he satirizes throughout the novel. Book 1, 2, 3, 4, he just satirizes various aspects of human civilization. So focus on that, Swift's satiric style. Now, in case of book 3, state powers and state policies are satirized. Focus on that. And in book 4, Swift portrays two different animals like Houyhnhnms and Yahoos, and they are contrasts to each other. Swift's attitude towards throughout the novel, Swift's attitude throughout the novel is quite misanthropic, quite a cynic one. So elucidate that and Swift's language and use of irony is important. Moving on to the next paper, romantic literature. William Wordsworth, Tintin Abbey. Of course, critical appreciation. Second question, significance of nature in the poet's mind. Third question, within quotation, emotions recollected in tranquility. That is, role of memory in Wordsworth's poem. Next, youth versus mature age. Also, the role of Sister Dorothy. Same question. Similar, I mean. Moving on to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Kubla Khan. Of course, again, critical appreciation. Second question, how does Coleridge create a supernatural world and make it look natural? Third question, imagination reaches a new height with Coleridge's Kubla Khan. How? Elaborate. Same kind of question. So, the next one, Coleridge himself subtitled the poem as a fragment. Do you agree? Again, another question that is pretty common but similar to the previously told questions. Give an account of Kubla Khan's pleasure dome and the supernatural environment that surrounds it. And the last one, Coleridge's use of language in Kubla Khan. Moving on to Percy B. Shelley, Ode to the West Wind. First question, of course, critical appreciation. Second question, imagery in Ode to the West Wind. This is a tough one, but this is a very, very common one. Imagery in Ode to the West Wind. Third question, structure of the poem. Fourth question, Shelley's unorthodox experimentation with the language and style in Ode to the West Wind. Fifth question, Shelley as a revolutionary poet or poet of revolution. Now, the next question, I don't think it will come, but you can think about it a bit. It helps. Sometimes, questions come in a twisted way to confuse you. It is better to think about these twisted questions beforehand so that you don't get nervous while being in the exam hall. So, the next question is a bit twisted, like Shelley was a pessimist, but his poem ends with an emphatically optimistic note. Explain. Next question, give an account of the impact of the west wind on land, sky and the sea. Next question, symbolism in Ode to the West Wind. Symbolism in Ode to the West Wind. Moving on to John Keats, Ode on a Grecian Urn. Critical appreciation, of course. Next question, Keats' sensuousness. This is a pretty common question about Keats, whatever the poem is. Third question, art as the truest beauty, or a similar question, that is mortal beauty versus immortal beauty, as Keats shows in his poem. Fourth question, Keats's Hellenism. Fifth question, Keats's use of imaginative faculty in Ode on a Grecian Urn. Sixth question, all of these questions are pretty important. Do not, let anyone go. Let anything go. I mean, all these questions are equally important. The next question is, what is an ode? Evaluate Keats's poem as an ode. Now, the next two questions, I don't think they have much of a chance to appear in the question paper, but still they are important questions to think about. They may come, they don't usually come, but they may come. So, structure of the poem, and the last one, Keats's poetic diction or language and style. Moving on to Charles Lamb. This year I think you should do Superannuated Man. That is more important than Dream Children. Okay, I think so. So, critical appreciation of Dream Children, number one. Number two, central ideas in the Superannuated Man. Number three, how does Lamb observe the working life and the retired life as contrasts to each other? Number four, evaluate Charles Lamb as an essayist on the basis of both the essays. Thomas D. Quincy. Moving on to Thomas D. Quincy, literature of knowledge and literature of power. What is, just make the concept very clear, and whatever the question is, you can answer that. So, what is literature of knowledge and what is literature of power according to De Quincey? Then, how does the literature of power operate? Or all the questions mixed into one, that is central ideas in Thomas De Quincey's essay. Okay. Moving on to the next paper, Victorian literature. Alfred Tennyson, Ulysses. First question, critical appreciation. Second question, as a dramatic monologue. Third question, Tennyson distinguishes different philosophies of life. How? Explain. The character of, next question, the character of Tennyson's Ulysses. Next question, Tennyson's language and style. This is very important. And the last one, structure of the poem Ulysses. Moving on to Robert Browning, My Lost Duchess. Of course, critical appreciation, but I don't think critical appreciation is going to come in case of such poems which are dramatic monologues. Generally, questions do not come as blunt as critical appreciation. In case of romantic poetry, it is common that they ask about critical appreciation. But in case of, such dramatic monologues, there are so many different kind of questions available, and they do not generally ask critical appreciation. But still, critical appreciation is the best way to have an overall idea about a text. In most of the cases, about a poem. So anyway, critical appreciation. Second question, as a dramatic monologue. Third question, character of the Duke of Ferrara. Fourth question, marriage as an institution in a patriarchal society. Fifth question, Browning's portrayal of patriarchal society. This is pretty, similar questions, these two. Next question is Browning's use of language and symbolism to, delineate the subtleties of the Duke's psyche. You see, there is the symbol of the Neptune that shows actually, that represents the Duke's character, the taming character, etc. So, there is, the language should be focused while reading the poem. The language tells us a lot about the Duke's character, his psyche, and the symbols also represent the Duke's character and his, dominant figure. So, there is a minimal chance that they will ask this question, but this is one. Anyway, moving on to Matthew Arnold. In this case, critical appreciation is important because in case of Matthew Arnold, questions vary sometimes in a confusing way, and the poem is pretty much confusing, no doubt about that. It confuses us when it confused us when we were students. It confuses all the students even now. It is not a very easy-going poem. It looks to be one, but it is not. So, in case of Matthew Arnold, questions come sometimes in a confusing way, sometimes. But actually what they ask most of the time is the style, the symbolism, and the central idea of the poem. So, if you do critical appreciation is going to be very important in case of answering questions about Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach. Next is symbolism. Next is Arnold's criticism of the loss of faith and emergence of Victorian realism or rationalism. Next question, Arnold's scholastic style and poetic diction. Moving on to Christina Georgina Rossetti. Now this year I think that Rossetti's poem has a chance to appear in the question paper, although in the previous years it never did. But I think this year Goblin Market has a clear chance to appear in the question paper. In that case, one of the other authors will go out. So if you prepare like suppose only Browning for broad question, Calcutta University, in case of Calcutta University, we have seen that I think, if I am not wrong, there was no question from Browning. So that may happen because you have, the question structure says that you will have 3 options out of which you have to do 1. And if you do one option, if you prepare just one option and forget the rest, that one option may not appear in the exams. So you cannot do that. And I think you should do Goblin Market. This poem has a chance this year. Critical appreciation, very important. If you do critical appreciation, you can understand and answer the rest of the questions as usual. The second question is moral preaching in the form of a fairy tale. The third question, so the second question, moral preaching in the form of a fairy tale. It looks like a fairy tale, but it is not actually a fairy tale, it is a moral preaching. Third question, fallen women, how they are represented, how they are, how Osity looks at them, and how she thinks about what she thinks about sin and redemption. Okay. Sin and redemption is the central idea of this poem. So, central ideas of Goblin Market. The next question, theme of temptation versus sacrifice. There are two characters, Laura and Lazy. One is tempted and the another is sacrificing, risking her honor and everything to save her sister. So temptation and sacrifice. Also a related question is the theme of sisterhood in this poem. Okay, so done. Moving on to Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Significance of the title, Pride and Prejudice. Second question, character of Darcy, character of Elizabeth. Third question, female characters, combined in an answer, in a single answer. So, fourth, gender roles in that society. Fifth question, theme of love, money, and marriage. Sixth question, Austen's critique of the concept of social class. Seventh question, Austen's use of irony and humor. Eighth question, art of characterization. And the ninth one, I don't think it will come, but it is a significant question. Evaluate Austen as a novelist. Now, this year I think if anyone does Jane Eyre, he or she will face easier questions than in case of Austen. This I have a feeling, just because Jane Eyre's text is new. And in that case, generally, when a text is new, when there is no previous question, nothing to cross out, you have all the available options in front of you. Generally, the most obvious questions come. First and foremost questions. So, in case of such texts, you don't have to think much. Yes, you have lot of probable questions because you don't have to cross out anything. But in case of such a plethora of questions, you will always focus on the obvious ones. So naturally, in case of Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre, you do the first question as a Gothic novel. Second question, feminism in Jane Eyre. Third question, character of Jane, character of Rochester. Fourth question, theme of independence, which is, the same as character of Jane. Then the theme of social class. These are the most important questions. Now there are some additional questions you can think about, but I don't think they will come this year. Theme of love and family. Next one is Charlotte Bronte's multifaceted exploration of religion and spirituality. And the last one, evaluate Charlotte Bronte as a novelist pioneering the wake of feminist writing. This is pretty much related to feminism, similar kind of question, but you are focusing on the author instead of the novel. I think if you do Bronte this year, that will be, you will have easier questions than in case of Austen. In case of Austen, you will have to prepare for more questions than in case of Bronte. Although I am not saying that Austen's novel is anything lesser than Bronte's novel. I am not saying that. I am just saying that in terms of this year, I think the questions that are going to come about Bronte's novel are going to be straightforward rather than the questions that are coming about Austen's novel. The same thing goes for Charles Dickens' two novels. I think the questions that are going to come about Great Expectations are going to be a little bit easier than the questions that are going to come about David Copperfield. Plus, David Copperfield is a larger novel. It has complications in plot construction because there are too many events, and in case of Dickens is not hard if you can make a formula out of it. All Dickens's novels are, the novels that are taught, like Oliver Twist, like Great Expectations, like Charles Dickens's David Copperfield, and all the novels. If we exclude novels like Tale of Two Cities, these kind of novels, you will see that in these novels there are always a child, and that child grows up. It is not always a Bildungsroman, but it is like in case of Great Expectations, it is not a large part of the life. In case of David Copperfield, it is pretty large. It is a Bildungsroman completely. In case of Great Expectations, or in case of Oliver Twist, it is a small part of the character's life. But still, at the center, there is always this child character who is oppressed by the system of social class, who is suffering from poverty or monetary problems or the problems of social class that is very common in Dickens, and then he goes to some educational system which is flawed. Dickens always shows the flaws of educational systems. Then there he will have like two friends, pair of friends. One of them is going to be a good friend throughout his life. The other one is going to be like a son of a wealthy family. Okay, in case of David Copperfield, in case of Great Expectations, you will always find such friends. Okay, there are like two friends. One is going to be a cute one, a good one, a faithful one, a very gentle one. The another is going to be, yes, a friend, but a very, very a lavish kind of one, and from a wealthy family, not taking his career seriously, etc. So that kind of contrast is used by Dickens, and there are going to be some weird female characters, like in case of Great Expectations, Miss Havisham, in fact Stella. In case of David Copperfield, you'll see the aunt is pretty eccentric in the beginning, Dr. Strong's wife, or even David's mother. She has no say about his about her son's education or life. So we can get the idea that if we look at Dickens in a formulaic pattern, there will be some people who are in debt, who are good people, but in debt, and law, the criminal law and the society behaves towards them or towards their family in such a way that their family suffers a lot. That is portrayed. In case of Dickens, so there are many formulas. There are many. You can make a pattern out of all these novels. Yes. In case of Oliver Twist, Hard Times, Great Expectations, David Copperfield, these formulas work. So if you do that, none of these novels are hard to grasp. These are pretty easy, except one thing, that the plot has sometimes many characters. You have to remember their names correctly. That is a hard thing. Except that you will have the concept pretty clear. Okay. Now, in case of Dickens, I will always tell you to focus on Dickens's portrayal of society, or in other terms, Dickens's social realism. That is always a question that is common. Whatever comes about Dickens, it is a common thing. It is a common thing that you have to write about, because Dickens and his novels represent the society, and that is his primary focus. That he always wants to portray the real world, the contemporary reality, the hardships of life. So that is common. Now sometimes you will be asked about, the education system, law and crime, or something like, other things. But the problem is that all these things together, they are a part of Dickens's portrayal of the society. So if you do one thing very, very much in detail and thoroughly, you will be able to answer these questions. Like social reality. In that social reality, one social reality is that social class. Social class deprived people of their opportunities that they should have. So social class, in case of Great Expectations, in case of David Copperfield, the social class created a hurdle for them. In case of Oliver Twist, that is even more obvious. Law and order. You see, in case of Micawber's life in David Copperfield, in case of the criminal laws that are portrayed and the crimes that are portrayed in Great Expectations and Oliver Twist. So you will find that these are pretty common things in case of Dickens. So in case of David Copperfield, the first question is as a Bildungsroman. Second question, as an autobiographical novel. Third question, narrative technique. Fourth question, I don't think it will come, but it is a question, plot construction. Fifth question, this is a good one, art of characterization. Sixth question, portrayal of Victorian society by Dickens. Now, related to that question is the next question. Theme of social class, ambition, and morality. The next question is gender roles, although because there are too many questions, I don't think this has a higher chance to come. But it is a question, gender roles. Next one is the concept of home and family as explored by Dickens. Of course, the character of David Copperfield, character of Agnes, Aunt Betsy Trotwood, Mr. Micawber, Uriah Heep, Peggotty. Next question, Dickens's portrayal of the education system. Next question, Dickens's portrayal of workhouse. Next question, Dickens's portrayal of the fisherman's society. And the last one, Dickens's use of contrasts in David Copperfield. Now I am going to tell you about Great Expectations. If you look at those questions, you will see that questions are pretty similar with David Copperfield. Just David Copperfield, in case of David Copperfield, you will have more variations or more because the plot is bulkier than the plot of Great Expectations. So naturally, that's why I suggest to do Great Expectations. This is a new one, and they will have the most obvious questions in front of them to give you, and that's why it will be easier for you to do Great Expectations. First question, significance of the title Great Expectations. Second question, the ending of the novel Great Expectations. Third question, Dickens's narrative technique, common thing. Fourth question, again common thing, Dickens's art of characterization. Next, again common thing, theme of social class, ambition and morality. A new thing comes, theme of justice. Another new thing, Dickens's portrayal of crime and law in Victorian society. In case of David Copperfield, that was focused on education, and here crime and law is more focused. So the next question is theme of identity, integrity and reputation, similar as the theme of social class. Character, of course, the central character, a pirate. Then the character of Joe, the character of Biddy, but I think Miss Havisham's character, Estella's character, these are more important. And you have to know a little bit about the minor characters, the characters like Provis, Compassion, Wemmick, because you will need them. You will be needed to explain about those characters while writing other answers. These characters cannot be avoided. And the last one, theme of orphanhood and parenthood. This is like theme of love and family, because you see, Pip was orphaned and Joe was his family. In case of David Copperfield, David actually lost his father, then his mother, and he found his guardian in Aunt Betsy. Then he found a family with Mr. Peggotty. Then he found a family in Mr. Micawber's house. So they were like their actual families, while they had no blood relations with them. In case of this novel also, the question of family comes, that who are actually caring for this boy. So theme of orphanhood and parenthood, that is also important. Now these are some. I think if you do all these questions, I think you will be able to do well enough in your exams that are coming, and you know what to do. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you for today.